There's a lot of 2020 election polls out there, but one poll in particular should have the Joe Biden campaign team very worried. A conservative group finds an unbelievable number of Joe Biden's campaign contributions came from unemployed people. Plus, President Trump receives another nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to start with the 2020 election and Joe Biden, because polls across the country in battleground states and nationally are tightening. They're all moving in the right direction. And there is one poll in particular that stands out that is bad news for Joe Biden and his team. So when you look at these polls, when you look at Florida and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, all across the country, these so-called battleground states, everything is closing. Everything is tightening. The leads that Joe Biden had are shrinking. And that is great news for President Trump and the Trump campaign team. One poll in particular that I find very fascinating that really tells the story is this so-called enthusiasm gap, because Joe Biden is not firing up his base. He is not firing up his supporters. The people that support Joe Biden are not going out and voting for him to support him. They are not voting for him. They are voting against President Trump. And that is never a good recipe. It does not lead to a winning election. And here's the story. One prominent disadvantage Biden faces going into this election cycle is that his voters are not enthusiastic about him. Polling data indicates there is a serious enthusiasm gap between the two candidates, and this trend could affect whether and how voters turn out to vote in November. So this is a big deal, folks. And to show you how big this spread is, this enthusiasm gap is, here is some information from a CNN poll, and here's more of the story. A recent CNN poll released August 16th found that Biden held a 4-point lead over Trump, according to a survey of 987 respondents conducted between August 12th and 15th. Biden's lead was noticeably smaller than when CNN had included the same question in 3 other polls earlier this year. The poll then asked 499 respondents who said they were likely Biden voters if their decision was more a vote for Biden or against Trump. 38% of respondents said their vote was pro-Biden, while 58% said their vote was anti-Trump. A similar question was asked to 452 respondents who said they were likely Trump voters. Of those polled, 67% said their vote was pro-Trump, while 29% said their vote was anti-Biden. So, of all those people who said they were going to vote for Joe Biden, only 38% said it was a vote for Biden. 58% said they were casting an anti-Trump vote. On the flip side, 67% of Trump supporters are voting for him because they support President Trump. Only 29 are casting an anti-Biden vote. And this is significant, folks. This gap is huge because you always want your candidate to have that enthusiasm over 50%. You have to have people wanting to vote for you, because people can be upset. They could be dejected. They could answer a poll that says, oh, I'm voting against this guy. But guess what? Those people don't turn out. They don't turn out to the polls. You turn out to the polls for something, because you support something, because you're excited about something. If you're not, people stay home. And in recent memory, the only candidates that had an enthusiasm gap lower than 50% were 2004 with John Kerry, give me a break, and 1984 with Walter Mondale. Joe Biden's enthusiasm rating is 38%. That's it. And that is bad news. And of course, the campaign team, the Biden team, is trying to downplay that and try and make excuses for why he's not getting out exciting people through campaign events. And here's that.
As the Biden campaign tried to keep the pressure on, the former vice president remained off the trail in Wilmington. Aides disputed an enthusiasm gap.
So the reality is Vice President Biden is actively campaigning, as is Senator Harris. But the difference is we're doing so safely.
Actively campaigning? He's actively reading from a teleprompter, folks. He looks like he's out of breath. He's out of it. He's saying weird stuff. And when he is answering questions, he's reading them. Everything's scripted so he doesn't go off the range and say something outrageous, which he ends up doing anyway. Even Bernie Sanders is trying to get the word out. He's been telling Biden, hey, you need to get out there. You need to get people excited.
Biden's former primary rival, Bernie Sanders, denied reports he has been privately pushing for the campaign to do more to woo liberals and Latinos.
Biden's in an excellent position to win this election, but I think we have got to do more as a campaign than just go after Trump.
Sanders is right, folks. Biden needs to get his base, his electorate, his supporters excited about him. But he can't because he's so dull. He's out there. A lot of times when he says something, you don't even understand what he says. And they have no platform. The whole position of the Democrats is, one, been taken over from the far left. Chaos and anarchy and statue tumbling and cancel culture. This is the platform of the left. Plus, all they seem to be running on is anti-Trump. We're not him, so vote for us. So next, let's talk about Joe Biden and campaign contributions. But first, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We're making our push for 100,000 subscribers by Election Day. 100K by Election Day, and we can do it with your help. So next, let's talk about those campaign contributions. Because if you are a person who's unemployed, do you think that person is going to be using some of the money they have, like in savings, to make a contribution to a political campaign, say Joe Biden's campaign? I don't think it's very likely. A conservative group has looked into Joe Biden's contributions, and the percentage from unemployed people is sky high. It is a huge red flag, and here's the story. The conservative group Take Back Action Fund is sounding the alarm on millions of political donations made to former Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign. According to the group, more than half of the 2019 contributions Biden received on the Democratic fundraising platform ActBlue came from unemployed people, Fox News reported. That number has increased in 2020, particularly in light of the pandemic. All right, so did you get that? In 2019, more than half of Biden's contributions came from people who are unemployed. Again, if you're unemployed, don't you think you'd be thinking about saving? Think about house payments or rent or food or something like that, not sending it off to Joe Biden's campaign? Well, so this group, this conservative group, looked more into this, not just Joe Biden, but the whole activity is ActBlue in general. And here's the story. After downloading hundreds of millions of dollars in donations to the Take Back Action Fund servers, we were shocked to see that almost half of the donations to ActBlue in 2019 claimed to be unemployed individuals. Take Back Action Fund President John Pudner told Fox News, the name of employers must be disclosed when making political donations, but more than 4.7 million donations came from people who claimed they did not have an employer. Those 4.7 million donations totaled $346 million ActBlue raised and sent to liberal causes. Okay, so about half the donations, folks, to ActBlue came from unemployed people. In 2019, unemployment rate was about 4%, okay? This totaled $346 million. Do you really think unemployed people have $346 million to throw to Joe Biden and other left-wing causes that funnel through ActBlue? It's just outrageous, and here's more. The numbers are ticking upwards as 2020 continues on, when more than 50% of donations coming through ActBlue being gifted by those who are unemployed. Data from WinRed, the Republican Party's version of ActBlue, the number of unemployed people who made donations to President Donald Trump sat at 4%. This year, the number is 5.6%. So, 4.4% in 2019 for President Trump, 5.6% this year. Seems much more in line with what's going on than over half the people donating to Joe Biden's campaign being unemployed. There's something crazy going on there, folks. Some donations, they're getting funneled through this place. It's not right. We need to stay on this. I'll keep covering it, but those are the facts right now. It's just mind-blowing. So next, let's talk about President Trump and what's going on, because while Joe Biden is out there saying ridiculous stuff, President Trump is actually being president. He is actually doing things. He has accomplishments both on the domestic side and the foreign policy side. This deal, this negotiations, this agreement with Israel and the UAE is historic, and it garnered him a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, guess what? Democrats' heads have to be exploding because he just received a second nomination, and here's the story. President Trump has received a second nomination for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize after he helped secure a deal for normalized economic relations between Serbia and Kosovo, days after he was nominated for his role in a deal between the UAE and Israel. Trump was nominated by Magnus Jacobson, a member of the Swedish parliament, who announced Friday that he was nominating the Trump administration along with Serbia and Kosovo for their joint work for peace and economic development through the cooperation agreement signed in the White House. I absolutely love this, folks, because this is how things are supposed to work. Total contrast to Barack Obama, who came in, had no accomplishments, and yet before he could do anything, was already nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. It was outrageous. He was hardly in office, hadn't any accomplishments. President Trump has been in there. He's been working on these deals, again, on the domestic side and the foreign policy side. This didn't even mention the deal with Israel and Bahrain. Real accomplishments, real nominations. Here's more. Fox News first reported that Trump's name was submitted for the 2021 prize by Norwegian lawmaker Christian Tybring-Gjedde, who cited Trump's role in brokering a peace agreement between Israel and the UAE. For his merit, I think he has done more trying to create peace between nations than most other Peace Prize nominees, Tybring-Gjedde, a four-term member of Parliament, who also serves as chairman of the Norwegian delegation to the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, told Fox News in an exclusive interview. So again, doesn't even mention the Israel-Bahrain deal to normalize their relations. All of this is happening, folks, on the foreign policy side. This nomination is outstanding, and I'd love the Democrats to say something about it. I'd love the media to actually cover it, because these folks, these nominations mean something. And when these people put out statements like this, it shows that the world is actually recognizing what President Trump is doing on the world stage. So next, let's talk about some football. So are you ready for some football? I'm not. And a lot of people aren't either, because the football season opened last Thursday night and it debuted to the lowest ratings it's had in 10 years. And here's the story. Initial ratings for the first game of the NFL 2020 regular season plunged amid the league's social justice push and greater competition from other professional sports. The overnight Nielsen media research figures showed that the primetime Thursday night matchup on NBC Sports dropped 16.1% in the key 18 to 49 demographic, attracting 16.4 million viewers in what could be a 10-year audience low, according to Deadline. That's awesome. Millions fewer people watched that game, and this was with the Kansas City Chiefs, who barred their fans from wearing any kind of Chiefs makeup, and the Houston Texans, who didn't even come out of the locker room for the national anthem. You know, our national anthem, where the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and remove your hats for the national anthem," showing respect, honoring our flag, our soldiers, the people who fought, coming together, united, at least for that moment. Houston, Texas stayed in the locker room. It's just outrageous, folks. But another poll has come out. So that's just the ratings for Thursday night. Another poll from Gallup shows that sports better do something, because it is losing the American people, and is losing the American people regardless of race or gender or age. And here's the story. Each year, Gallup surveys Americans on their favorability in regards to 25 major industries in the country. In the latest, released this week, we see some precipitous declines that should shake the constitutions of the fist-shaking pro athletes. Of all the sectors measured in the survey, professional sports suffered the biggest drop in support, falling all the way to 23rd on the list and settling barely above the federal government. The negative impressions by Americans now see sports underwater by double digits, with 30 to 40% favorable-unfavorable ratio. Can you believe that? Sports barely outranks the federal government. That's how bad it is. People work hard. They take care of their families. When they watch sports, they want an escape. They want to cheer for their team. They don't want this social justice stuff. They don't want politics rammed down their throat by the teams, by the field, by the announcers, by the networks. They don't want to see it, and it's showing up in the polling. Good for them. I'm not tuning in. I hope you folks don't either, because when they see it in the ratings, when they see it in the pocketbook, it just proves the get woke, go broke mentality. That's what we want to drive home, and I think we're doing it. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.